Good evening. I'd like to call to order the April 9th Town Council Committee of the Whole meeting. Councilors present: Perry, Schmidt, Atwater, Aubry, Granatowski, Heed, and Franco. Councilor Parker notified us that she isn't feeling well this evening, and Councilor Baumgardner is absent. Calendar and communications. I just wanted to make just a quick note, and if we can get out on time, I'm going to head over to the community center because we have a young man who is the first Black adaptive karate participant who's receiving a black belt tonight, and it's happening here in Groton at 8:40, so I'm going to try to get over there if we can to see that. And then I just wanted Mr. Bird to have a chance to address something that there's been a buzz about. So if you wanted to just talk about the North Stonington Bridge, whatever information you have before we forget.
Sure. A couple weeks ago, I had emailed, I've been in touch with him a few times before that, First Selectman Rob Simmons over in Stonington. They had originally, the Board of Finance had opted not to put their funding in this year for the bridge. I asked Rob if there was any way to get that back in. He hasn't responded, but Councilor Parker also talked to someone she knows on the Board of Finance there, and they said they're also not going to be funded this year.
Okay.
But that happened one other time when I guess we were going to fund it, and then they didn't, and they do, and so it's back and forth.
So they're not in
not for this year. Anyways,
okay,
yeah.
Very good. Thank you for checking on that and updating us on that. Councilor Franco.
Nothing to report.
Councilor Heed.
I had nothing to report, but I just want to remind everybody that Thursday, April 11th, there is a public meeting for the Paquonic Bridge Village. So the plan of, anyways, it's April 11th, Thursday, 6 o'clock. That's all.
Is it at the library?
Oh, where is it? It is at the
Library.
That's right. It's at the library.
Yep. Thank you. Councilor Aubry.
I've been working on the budget, but just as a reminder, we need more people for our first beautification committee event, which will be the last Saturday of this month, 9 o'clock in the morning at the senior center. We're going to go out and clean up Groton. So anybody that can join us, we would greatly appreciate it. I'm sure there'll be a group from the RTM.
Councilor Atwater.
I attended a seminar, CCM seminar on ethics, code of conduct, and FOIA, and I've been working on the budget too.
No report.
No report.
Thank you. All right, under new business, we are on item 5A. Oops, we didn't do the minutes, I'm sorry. For approval of the minutes, 2019-249, March 26, 2019 COW meeting minutes. This is on page 2. Councilor Franco.
Make a motion to approve the minutes 2019-249, March 26, 2019 COW meeting minutes. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Franco and seconded by Heed. Is there any discussion on the minutes of March 26? Seeing none. All those in favor of acceptance of the minutes of March 26 COW, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? We are at 7 councilors, so it's unanimous, 7-0-0. Now we are on to 5A, 2019-245, FYE 2019, fourth quarter transfers. This is on page 12. Councilor Heed.
Make a motion to recommend a resolution to approve fiscal year ending 2019 fourth quarter transfers.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Heed and seconded by Franco. Finance Director Landry is here without all her budget books. Traveling light tonight.
Is it working?
Yes.
As you know, the charter provides for either supplemental appropriations or transfers from contingency throughout the year. And typically we do this we call them fourth quarter transfers. We do them at the end of the year or close to the end of the year after we've put the budget together and we see those departments that we think are not going to be able to cover unforeseen or unexpected expenses in their budgets. So this year I am looking for transfers for 8 functions. 3 of them are under $10,000, and that's legislative policy, Groton Long Point, and City of Groton. We have 5 that are over $10,000 and will require that they be referred to the RTM for approval. And those are voter registration, human resources, Finance, Public Works, and the Library. The total of these transfers is $126,634, and after, there will be a balance in the contingency fund of $248,573 if these transfers are approved. So if you have questions or comments?
Thank you, Director Landry. And you left detail here for us about the balance and everything, so it's very detailed, lots of explanation. Any questions for Director Landry? Councilor Franco and then Heaton.
On the Public Works, it's for salary for landfill operator added to the budget. Can you explain this one?
Do you remember last year during the budget, because of the transfer station, we added back a landfill operator so that it would be open, but the funding was not added to Public Works budget. So this is going to cover about half of the salary.
Half of the salary, and are we, ask Mr. Burr, are we expecting the landfill to be self-sufficient this year?
No, I anticipated the same thing. The fees did pay, the increase of fees did pay a good portion of that position, but not all of it.
And is this 30,000 the discrepancy?
I believe it is.
Right, it's
Yeah.
about half
Yeah.
of what's not covered.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Heaton.
My question is on the accumulated leave. Do we, I mean, normally I think we're accumulating leave as it's earned. That makes sense, but I'm not sure what exactly that means.
Okay, when we have positions that retire, most of the contracts and also the non-union have a provision for accumulated leave is paid out at a ratio, a lower ratio when they retire. And we had two positions. I had one in finance that was a union employee, and then Betty Ann Ryder from the library director retired this year. And those were both provisions that in the agreement and the contracts.
All right, so they're not accumulating vacation time, as it were, like for the hotel. As I work throughout the year, I accumulate points.
Right, that is how it is here. We accumulate on a monthly basis, and the provisions in the contracts determine how much you're allowed to carry over or accumulate. But at retirement, you are paid out for a certain portion of that.
All right, so it goes into the general fund though. Is this in some special segment? I guess 1013.
I don't understand your question.
We paid out of the general fund, right now through contingency, but out of their budgets, if there's any money towards it.
Right, these have already been paid out, and that's why the functions are going to be overdrawn, because it wasn't expected or budgeted for. We didn't expect those people to retire this year.
Okay.
Councilor Aubrey.
I'm not sure who can answer the question, but I'm wondering, in the city of Groton, the streetlight increase cost, the reason for that?
I think we touched on that briefly when we were doing those two budgets, but I'm not 100% sure, but when the budget was put together this time last year, there was an estimated cost of what we thought those streetlights were going to be, and then ultimately, I think there was an increase in the rates that are not reflected in the 19 budget.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Do you have another one?
Yeah, I just
Go
want
ahead.
to, I think, Counselor Heed, I wanted to question on that. So it's accumulated leave. So usually that's a liability, and so over time, the leave is added up
It's
each year
accumulated.
as a liability, and is that liability taken and put into a separate account?
No.
So at the end, they can withdraw?
No, it is reported in the audit as compensating absences, but we don't actually move the funding, because we don't fund it in the annual budget, because we really don't know who's going to be leaving at that time. But no, we don't.
But
book
as
it
they accumulate it, you're not putting it aside?
No, we're not.
All right, thank you.
You're right.
Back to Councilor Aubrey.
Yeah, this question, again, I'm not sure who could answer it or if it's appropriate at this time, but do our current contracts, as we bring new people in, still have the provision that you can accumulate this much for retirement?
Well, I believe the contracts do still have those provisions in there.
Yeah.
I think that over the years, it's been reduced, as we have, I think
We'll
it's
keep
the
trying to
term.
whittle it down.
Yeah, bifurcated system.
Do you think in the future we might be doing that a little differently?
Yeah, that's the goal.
Thank you.
I think with the contract negotiations, you were working on the healthcare and then the retirement,
Right.
so little by little.
And those are two big ticket
Right.
items.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on 2019-245 FYE 2019 fourth quarter transfers. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously, 700.
Thank you.
Thank you. 5B, Counselor Aubry, 2019-248, termination of the Noant Gardens Task Force guiding document. Oh, no, this can't go to you. This has to go to Counselor Zepari. 2019-248 on page 20.
Are you passing the ball to me? I thought you asked.
It's your
Councilor Overy.
motion.
Yeah. But I thought you asked.
I did, I didn't realize what it was.
Okay.
So it's all you.
I move that we rescind our decision to terminate the Noant Gardens Task Force that we made at the last council meeting and at the committee of the whole prior to that.
I would ask that you read the resolution as written, please.
Motion to rescind the adopted resolution terminating the Noant Gardens Task Force agreement.
Second.
Moved by Zepari and seconded by Schmidt. Did you wish to speak to this, Counselor Zepari?
I think that this was a bad decision for many reasons. I think that it was bad for the council because it's a bad image and a bad precedent to begin. I've spoken about this before. When we've made a decision, we should stick by it, and we have a commitment. And even though the task force didn't meet up with a few of their requirements, we made a commitment that they would have the use of that property until 2019. That was made by the council that preceded us in 2017. They would have use of that property until 2021, probably. Then, for some reason, we were disappointed because they didn't keep minutes. We even thought that they didn't keep track of their finances very well, but we've discovered subsequent to that presentation that actually it wasn't they who had the financial miscues. It was another committee that had $80,000 that wasn't well accounted for. So we sort of went after these people because they didn't keep minutes and because they didn't accomplish what they set out to do. And they set out to start a community garden. And they did accomplish having a community garden. They had 23 plots and they made them available to people in the community to garden. And they went on and they planted fruit trees in this area, and they planted some Christmas trees, all without a penny of investment on the part of the town. They did this with money that they were able to get from people who supported them. We somehow expected that they were going to develop $1 million park, and we weren't going to give them a nickel for that development. And I think that expectation was unrealistic. These people wanted to make gardens, and they did. And they were trying to develop a park, and I'm surprised that, at some of the progress they made. Without a penny being spent by the town, they engaged a landscape architect to develop plans for the park, but they didn't have the money to go ahead and press forward. They came to us, we started to consider rescinding or terminating the agreement about 4 months ago, and they came to us about 2 months ago, and they said, well, we want to build a pavilion as a first step, and that's going to be a $50,000 expense, and we think we can raise the $50,000 by April 4th. So we voted at that time, 8-1, as I recall, to postpone the voting on the decision to terminate their holding of the property and to terminate our agreement with them. And we voted to postpone that to April 23rd. But within 2 weeks, we had another motion to rescind that vote. So 2 weeks after that, we rescinded the vote. But in that time, they were supposedly trying to raise $50,000. We pulled the rug out from under them by simply opening the door to rescinding our agreement to postpone, because no one will will donate money to an organization that is on the verge of collapse, of being terminated by the town. So we harmed their ability to go ahead and raise the money that they needed. In this particular instance, we have waffled and changed our decision twice. Once on a vote to postpone for until April 23rd, and a second time on a vote to give them until 2021 to hold that property. So we broke our promise twice. The reason that's so bad for the council is that shows the entire community that you can't count on the council to keep its word, because they don't, and we didn't. I think that's a bad thing. This town has numerous committees and commissions that operate by volunteers. And every one of them, when they get into those commissions, I think there will be reluctance on the part of many people to make a firm commitment to the function of those committees when they know that at any time the council, for very little reason, will terminate their committee. So I think from the point of view of the council and our effectiveness, we've shot ourselves in the foot with that decision, and I think we should take it back. I don't think the decision is good for the town. And the reason I say that is that the town has provided, the Parks and Rec Department has provided a large mower to mow over the large areas of the area that's of the Noank Public Gardens. But the people of that committee went out and they mowed the more difficult areas, the areas between trees and where they would have to get a hand mower and get out and do it. Now that they've been terminated, I suppose the town council, the Parks and Rec Department is going to have to assign someone to go over and push a little mower around those difficult areas. Either that, or those areas will be allowed to overgrow and create blight in the area. Now, this was something that was being accomplished by a group of volunteers for free, and now we're going to have to pay for it. Small pay, but the desire is for some people is to terminate. I'm sorry.
Is that your timer?
The desire for some people in terminating the task force is to sell the property and have it developed so that it will be tax-producing property. I'm not just looking at it from the point of view of sale. Some people feel that that if we sold it at the market value, we would bring in a few $1 million. I don't think that's true, because we never sell property at the market value to developers. We always sell it at a small fraction of that value, because we want the developers to come in and develop, and we're trying to encourage them, so we give the property away for much less than it's worth. So I don't think we're going to get a big... I did turn it down. Well, anyway. I did... So I don't think that we're going to make any money on the sale. If we turn it over to a developer and he puts in a row of houses that are compliant with the Noank zoning regulations, I doubt that we're going to produce enough income from taxes from those houses to pay for the increase in temporary seasonal employees in the park department. We're just not going to have that kind of income from that project. I think that the town would best be served by having that property turned into a park. Preserve open spaces. I think parks determine the character of a town, determine the desirability of the town as a living place, and it's a strong factor when you go through town and you see the parks, you say, wouldn't it be nice to live here? But when you see developments of tract housing, you say to yourself, I'm glad I don't live here. At least I do as I drive through other towns. So I think that to have this developed would be not the best way to go about using that property. That property should be turned into a park, and it should be available for people to enjoy open space, to walk through an area where the grass is clipped and looks good, and where there's some shrubs and there's some benches, maybe some picnic benches, but could be utilized that way. Could be utilized for kids to play with frisbees, for pickup ball games, for all kinds of things that you can't do when you develop tract housing. We're not prepared at this time to develop a park. At this time, we're building 3 schools, and we expect our mill rate to go up by 2 next year because we're developing those schools. We shouldn't be taking on another project that's going to add to the tax burden of the people at this time. Having the Noah Gardens Task Force keep that property and keep it at least in the condition it has been kept in until 2021 gives us a time to see where we stand economically in our ability to develop the property as a park. And for those reasons, I think the best thing we can do with that property at this time is to continue it in the hands of the task force, the Noah Gardens Task Force. Now, I see people shaking their heads, and at least you didn't turn your back at me. And so we're in good shape here. Thank you.
Thank you. I was consulting the rules because I thought we were at 5 minutes, but it's, that's for council, not for Cow. So I just need to say I disagree with some of the characterization you made of the rest of the council. So please only speak for yourself when you are making your remarks. Councilor Schmidt.
I don't think I said anything about the rest
Excuse
of the
me.
council.
Councilor Schmidt.
I didn't say anything about the rest of the council, did I?
Councilor Zepari, I yielded the floor to Councilor Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and Mayor. I did want to point out that when the deficiencies of the Nowak School Garden were pointed out to them, they did come back, try to turn in proper minutes, proper agendas, and they did also try to come up with a definite plan for what to do with the park, which seemed to really irritate rather than ameliorate the situation, which I found a little strange. But I think that once we start trying to change what has been done by a previous council, that we're treading on very bad slopes, and we can expect other things to happen. I think that the contracts, the agreements we make are no more valuable than they are of the paper that they're written on. And I think that people will not have the respect that they would have had before if we had not taken this turn. And so I therefore feel that we should not do this. I would be very surprised if these people want to continue on and do any of the work because they've faced such adverse conditions, but hopefully they would.
Is there any other discussion on this matter? Councilor Aubrey.
Well, I appreciate the fact that David brought it to conversations here at the council. And I think it's always difficult when you step forward with something like that turns into something being a little bit controversial. But on the other side, my feeling is there's a year left with the agreement. I don't see any harm in continuing that because we really have no plan for that park right now or that area. If they continue on for a year, it gives us an opportunity to see what's feasible should they not really do a good job. And so And I do feel that it is important that when a council has made an agreement, if you possibly can, you carry it forward. So, again, I do thank David. I think it brought to light a lot of things that were being ignored. But I think that we should give that last year, work on a plan so that if something does not come to fruition, that we're prepared to step forward in a positive way.
Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we will vote on 2019-248, termination of the Noank Gardens Task Force Guiding Document rescission. All those in favor, please raise your hand. So Perry, Schmidt, Overy. All those opposed? Franco, Heed, Granatowski, Atwater, and no abstentions. So that motion fails. 3 in favor, 4 opposed, 0 abstentions. We are at 7 counselors. We are on item 5C, Counselor Overy. This is on page 21, and this is 2019-249 Town-Owned Property Reuse Evaluation Process.
I'm
Page
sorry.
21.
I was busy talking. Imagine that. Want to give me yours?
I think you went too far. 21? There you go.
Thank you, David. Okay, I move the motion to recommend a resolution adopting the town-owned property reuse evaluation process.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Overy and seconded by Atwater. Mr. Burt, did you want to address this at all?
Sure, just to remind people that as we looked at selling off those couple pieces of the Noank Gardens property there, it was brought to our attention that the Plan of Conservation and Development had recommended that the town adopt a process to evaluate the use of town-owned property. We had a group of us, most of the department heads and some others, and especially Deb Jones did a lot of work on this, who was staff to, I think it's the Planning Commission. We're recommending, she believes this meets what the Planning Commission was looking for us to do, to go through a process, so we're recommending adoption.
Thank you. And I just wanted to read, there are 5 goals here. It states the purpose, the process is intended to establish a procedure by which unused or underutilized town-owned property is reviewed for future use or disposition. The goals of this process are: 1, preserve the character of the town; 2, enhance the quality of life for its residents and visitors; 3, enhance the sense of place for the town; 4, grow the grand list in order to diversify the tax base; and 5, divest from real property with little or no value to the town. So, and then it outlines a 4-step process that town staff would take in evaluating the property. Any question or comment on this particular item? Councilor Franco.
I had wrote a note here. What I wanted to ask is, the reuse evaluation going to specifically say what should go there? For an example, Groton Heights, I would assume that majority of the people I had spoke to thought housing was going in there, or some kind of housing, and it ended up being a
There might
surprise.
be a
to
range of
everybody.
things they say this is suitable for based on zoning and other things. I think each item you look at is going to be a little different from one another. That's also why we didn't want this too awful detailed, because there'll be certain commissions and groups we, converse with on certain things that might not apply to others. So each one's going to be a little different, but, it's the overall process, I think that's important here. But as specific as we can, sometimes it will be very specific, and sometimes it'll be more broad.
Okay. I just don't want to eliminate
Sometimes it might just
ideas.
rule out a couple of things that definitely don't fit, and, each one will be different.
Yeah.
And we can tweak this as we go too. It's only a policy, it's not an ordinance that we have to go through a long process on. We can get this going so that we can use it and then tweak it as we go. It's an easy fix if we want to add stuff.
Right, because I just don't want it to be too specific, because
Right.
Groton Heights is a prime example of that, something that nobody probably ever thought would fit in there perfectly, and it did.
Right.
Thank you.
Councilor Overy.
Would I be correct in assuming that when you put this committee together, you would probably have a representative from the EDC? Not the committee, but the staff.
Oh, yeah. Well, and as we've been looking at things, we've actually had John Page and Deb sitting in on all of them. Sam, I think, may have been on some too, but there'll at least be two at all of them, I'm sure.
Great, thank you.
No, to me, that's the most important one.
Yeah. I'd read an old one, and it said didn't have that in it, so I just wanted to check on it.
Any other
Thank you.
question or comment? Okay, seeing none, we will vote on 2019-249 town-owned property reuse evaluation process. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. Let's see, 5D, Counselor Atwater, 2018-134-2, plastics reduction, statewide ban of single-use plastic bags on page 23.
I make a motion to recommend a resolution stating that the town supports a statewide ban of single-use plastic bags, endorses Senate Bill 1003 entitled An Act Concerning the Use of Single Plastic and Paper Bags, and encourages the General Assembly to pass the proposed bill in the current legislative session. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Atwater and seconded by Heed, and I'm going to go first to Counselor Heed, if you would like to talk about this at all.
Oh, well, yeah, I'd like to ask John what the status is of the ordinance that the staff was working on.
We had sent it last week to the attorneys, and it's already been turned around. That attorney had already looked at several similar ones, which ours is based on the Stonington, so it's a pretty easy review. So it's already been reviewed and okayed in its current form for the council to review whenever they're ready.
All right, great. Yeah, I think it's important to keep moving forward on this, so that we can create a little bit of buzz and maybe give some cover to the, did I hit that? Some cover to the State House, so that they can keep pushing for that bill to pass in the Senate.
So are you looking then to have that brought forward as well, have it placed on the agenda?
I would, yes,
Okay,
please.
great. Sounds good. Counselor Aubrey.
I just wanted to mention, I believe it was in Pennsylvania, it was when I was coming back, and I'm sure I was in Pennsylvania. Who knows? But they announced down there that one of the places that made plastic plates and et cetera had found a new way to make them that they would break down like a piece of paper. And they were planning a huge expansion because they feel there's going to be such a need for them. So I think that very soon we're going to be hearing about a new product that's going to make it a lot easier to transfer from plastic to an acceptable type of plastic. I don't know what it is, but they were pretty excited about it.
I know some of our local restaurants have gone to paper containers. I think Costello's uses a cardboard container for their takeout. Manana uses paper straw. So it's nice to see the local businesses making the moves on their own. I think it's good for us to keep pace and set examples. So, did you want to add something? I'm sorry.
Just to mention, I am supportive of the ordinance, but just because this type of thing has come up before, I want to make it clear to the audience that the whole letter from the Conservation Commission is in here, including them not recommending to move forward and allowing the state process. I just want to make sure that they know that that was mentioned.
Thank you.
I don't think that the technology is quite there yet for the plastic, so I hope that comes about eventually. We have something, we use plastic cups at the Marriott for the associate cafeteria, and it says it needs to be recycled in an official facility, because it can't be, it's biodegradable, but it still has to be put through a certain process. So
Well,
if it gets thrown, if this particular plastic, if it gets thrown on the ground, it doesn't actually turn into dirt. Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Counselor Atwater.
I guess to help me understand, is this motion or this resolution stopping our process from, no, so we're going ahead with our own, even if it takes the state another 2 years or whatever?
Right. So the Conservation Commission, correct me if I'm wrong, they recommended we endorse
Right,
the state process, but our attorneys have also said what was proposed is valid, and I believe Counselor Heed, because this was his item that he was advocating for, would like us to move ahead with that, and the attorneys say it's fine the way it's written.
Good, thank you.
Okay, that way we don't get stuck behind. All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on 2018-134, plastics reduction statewide ban of single-use plastic bags. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. We are on to 5E, 2019-246 Beautification Committee, addition of alternate members on page 27. Counselor Schmidt?
Thank you. I do make a motion to recommend a resolution adding 3 alternate member positions to the Beautification Committee. And I think it would be a wise thing to do because
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Moved by Schmidt, seconded by Atwater. Counselor Schmidt?
I think it would be a wise move because very often people are ill or they have other obligations, family obligations, and cannot always be there. But the alternate would have the same obligation as the regular member and would have to attend all meetings and would be there to help the group go on with their further business.
Thank you. Is there any other further discussion, Counselor Aubry or Counselor Franco? No? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of 2019-246 Beautification Committee addition of alternate members, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. We are on to 2019-247 Groton Resilience and Sustainability Task Force addition of alternate members on page 28. Counselor Perry, please.
I motion to recommend a resolution adding 2 alternate members to the Groton Resilience and Sustainability Task Force.
Seconded. Moved by Zepari, seconded by Granatowski. And to echo what Counselor Schmidt said, I think we may need a couple of alternates on the commission in case someone is out of town or just needs to take a break for health reasons. So that's why I'm asking for the alternate positions for the committee. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of 2019-247, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. And we are on to 5G. Counselor Franco?
Make a motion to recommend a resolution that Councilor David Atwater be appointed to the Southeast Area Transit Seaboard. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Franco and seconded by Schmidt. Counselor Baumgartner had asked to serve in this capacity when he first came onto the council, and due to a work commitment that he has now, he finds he's no longer able to attend the meeting, so Counselor Atwater has graciously agreed to step in and fill the seat position on behalf of the town. I believe, does Mr. Offinger still attend these also as the second?
Yes.
So we have 2 representatives, so former town manager Offinger is still filling out his term, and Counselor Atwater will represent the council there. Any discussion or questions? I just wanted to say thank you for Counselor Atwater for attending these meetings on our behalf. All those in favor of 2019-256, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. I have no review of agenda items. Is there any other business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, you have other business?
I have just one thing.
Okay.
I would like to, I don't know how to do it appropriately, but I'd like to create a way that we know who's doing what with what committees. I've noticed several times we'll be talking about something and somebody will say, oh, I've been attending that, but we're not getting a report and we don't really know what's happening. So I thought maybe we could organize that just a little bit more.
It's up to you, whatever you would like. I just assumed we were getting the reports as everybody went to their meetings. Everybody usually debriefs when they've attended a meeting, but how would you like to formalize that?
Well, I think it would be good if somebody is appointed to, or asked to do something, because sometimes it doesn't go through here, that we might mention it to start with so that we'd know who to call if we had a question other than John. And I think it would just make things flow a little bit better.
Okay, so shall we start with perhaps Ms. I hate to mention her name publicly, your assistant could put together the list of the capacities that each counselor serves in, and we could share that with everybody to begin with.
Sure.
Some of the meetings are not very frequent. Some are
Right.
monthly, some are quarterly, some are annually. So
Right.
there may not be regular meetings of each committee, but I understand what you're saying.
Thank you.
I'll get back to
Okay.
you.
Let me just make a note of that. Any other business?
I'll be quiet now.
Would you like to move to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn. Get you down to your other.
Moved by Aubrey, is there a second? Seconded by Schmidt. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. We are adjourned at 7:14. Thank you.